Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and yeah, I haven't done a whole lot with the lighting. Normally I do a little better. As you notice, I'm 2 minutes late, so I'm not, I'm a little disorganized this morning, I guess is what I'm saying. Good morning, Melissa. I'm just getting on. I'm just kind of running around. Good morning, Joanne. And I got up, I think I woke up at about almost 6:15 this morning, and I couldn't, I've just been, and then all of a sudden I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 6:57, and I have a live stream to do. This will be the last time, though. It'll be for a little while at least, where it was going to be with this ring light and everything, because we are going to, because the sun will be up, good morning, Suda. Yeah, the sun will end up being up after tomorrow, because tonight, obviously, if you're on the East Coast, and I think maybe not everybody who's on this reel, but a lot of people are, we go back, the clocks go back tonight. So the upshot is that you get an extra hour of sleep. If you can't sleep, then it may just suck. It might just be an extra hour to toss and turn. Good morning, Pat. Because I'm like, I had thoughts when I came on, and then I was kind of like rushing around. I'm like, oh, I don't have anything set up. So yeah. So anyway, I'm here, and we're good, and I will promise you I will get more coherent. Yeah. So it's rather interesting what happened yesterday. This morning I woke up to a fox screaming outside. I could hear her out in the graveyard. And I saw her walk by about 3 times yesterday. She kind of wandered around in front of the house. But I had a really odd thing. I went out with Jenny. We went out for a walk, and then we went out to get some coffee before I finished my day's errands yesterday. And as I left my porch, I saw, I have a tree, and the squirrels like to, I don't know if it's the squirrels or what it is, but they I always find the bits of the bark, could even be birds, like kind of all over the place. And I saw what seemed was a large piece of tree bark, and so I had kind of pushed it, and then I looked at it, I was like, ooh, that doesn't feel like a piece of tree bark. And so when I kind of took a stick and I kind of went through the leaves and looked at it, it was actually a frog. There was actually a frog on the front of mine. And it's funny, because Joanne has sent me this Monty Python sketch, with the box of chocolates and the crunchy frog. It was just sitting there, and it was just kind of not moving, so I wasn't sure if it was dead. But then when I came back, it was gone. So it was probably just, trying to, how animals will do that. They might freeze just to make it look like they're dead when they're not. So that's an odd omen, because really there's no, first of all, we're in drought. So it's like, there's no water about. Maybe that's why the frog looks so tired. I don't know. But how it got onto my porch, unless it's quite possible too that it was picked up by an animal and maybe it dropped it on my porch. That is a possibility. But again, it doesn't appear that it was dead, unless something came along, picked it up, and took it away after I left. So that's another possibility. But not sure whether that frog was alive or dead. But it was certainly interesting, because I don't typically see frogs, not in November anyway. That's not kind of a thing that tends to happen. So just a bit strange. Now, I think other than Rouhani session that I'm doing this morning, I have a clear schedule for today, because one of my other clients had to reschedule this weekend. So I'm really happy that I'm going to be having a couple days to take my time getting the housework done. I do have tarot videos I'm going to be producing for next week, Aries through Virgo. So I don't feel like I have to shove those in somewhere. Like I can fit it in where I can. And so that's kind of what's going on, thankfully. I win a goodie bag, and inside there was none other than a beautiful rose quartz turtle pendant. Oh wow, look at that. And that's wow. So there you go. There's Mabel's your spirit guide there, and so you just got her in rose quartz form. So that's really sweet. So this morning, Mabel, yes, exactly. When I woke up this morning, I had, obviously, one of the first things I do, and part of the reason that I end up running late in the morning is because I have my sort of communication with my guides. And I had a number of thoughts running through my head this morning, including an idea for a Katonia live stream that I'm going to talk about, but in which I'm going to talk a bit about, well, that actually has a little bit more to do with something somebody posted about the Trojan War and the Iliad, and I was thinking about kind of the role of the feminine in that. So that I'm going to put over on Katonia, because that's kind of a reach for a morning live stream that's more of a spiritual coaching live stream. So, but what I did, the other thing that came into my mind today was when I was, again, morning Azrael messages, is the idea that, the idea of the egregore. Okay, now we've talked a little bit about this, those of you who have taken intuitive development with me, and I think everybody but Melissa on here has taken intuitive development with me. And so I'll just re-explain what an egregore is. An egregore is a being that's created out of our thoughts. Okay, so when we think of something, we can create an egregore. We can. The idea is that certain. So for example, in certain haunting situations, I think one of the more recent ones that I point people to is an episode of Kindred Spirits that features the ghost hunters. What you call it? I just don't like the way this looks over here. Was it Amy Bruni and Adam Berry? Now, and Chip Coffey was on it too. Now that show, unfortunately, has been canceled which sucks because it was one of my favorite paranormal shows. This was on my mind yesterday. Thank you. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, so there you go. There's another reason to bring it up, right? So, and in that particular episode, what happened was that they were called into this museum in Massachusetts to investigate a haunting by the woman who's the museum kind of director. And it was basically a historic home kind of museum. And she had said since 2018, and this of course was happening during COVID, that there was this sudden uptick of this boy with like a half disintegrated face appearing. They call him quote unquote zombie boy, you know? And that all these investigators were piling in to get pictures of Zombie Boy, and people had these experiences and stuff. And then she had set up what they call a psychomantium, which I just thought, that's like the dumbest thing in the world to do. But in any case, she set up a psychomantium in the bathroom, and that's supposed to be a place to, especially if you think that there is a haunting that is problematic, you don't want to do something to amplify it, which is what a psychomantium would do. Psychomantium is like being in a dark space with like a mirror. It's almost like a form of scrying, where you can kind of encounter the spirit in this space where it's almost like opening up with a Ouija board kind of a thing, only it's the old Greek way of doing it. You know, you open up this thing with a psychomantium. And so I just thought that was not the best thing to do, but in any case, she did it. But when Amy and Adam went to investigate, they were like, and they were looking at the pictures, they're like, I don't know. They're like, we don't really think we see anything in these pictures. People say, oh, look, he's in this picture. And they're like, it looks more like matrixing, like somebody's making it up in their head. But nonetheless, they decided, Amy at one point said, you know what? She said, I think it's not that there's a new haunting here. I think that people putting their energy into this idea has created a haunting. So her and Adam did an experiment. They made up a story. They made this total story about Zombie Boy and said, his father's name was, I forget what the father's name was. The mother was Mary, I remember that. The father was Edward, I think. And he had a sister, and I forget what her name was. It was like Eunice or something. I don't know. It's something like that. I don't think that's exactly right. But and then that he fell off a cart when he was 12 and had a terrible accident and died, and it was during the Civil War, and his father went off to the Civil War, he made up this whole story. And they just sat in the room and they talked about it. And they also said that when he appears in paranormal investigations, that he plays with the K2 meter, which is that meter they have that lights up if it senses electromagnetic energy. And supposedly if a spirit gets close to it with its energetic field, the lights will go up. So they said, oh yeah, and he really likes to do that. So they made up this whole thing. They wrote it out and they actually put it on a table in the room. And then they went out and investigated other parts of the property. They called Chip Coffey, because he's in Georgia. Good morning, Alex. We're just talking about egregores, and I'm talking about this Kindred Spirits episode that I was talking about. So they call Chip Coffey. They're out in the barn, and Chip says, is there somebody here having something to do with the Civil War? And they're both looking at each other. It's a ghostometer, yeah. Well, like some people think so, yeah. I mean, you use it for other things as well. But it's, but they had, so they had, so they were out in the barn, and then they said, they were both looking at each other, and they're like, well, not exactly, but, because the house, by the way, was not a Civil War era house. It had nothing to do with the Civil War. The fact that Chip picked up on that, they thought, well, that's really interesting. So they're like, okay, well, we'll call you back later and tell you about that. They didn't say anything else to him about it. They said, you might be picking up on something different. And so they go, and they go back into the house later, and they decide to do an investigation. And they do the EVPs, right? They do the recordings and stuff. And they start asking questions of this boy that's in the house. And they say, okay, well, can you tell us about your father? Can you tell us the name of your mother? And the thing is, what was appearing on the tape, okay, this was EVPs live, because they went back and played it back right away. He was hearing the same names, Edward, Mary, we hear you like the K2 meter, light it up, and it would light up like crazy. And they're looking at each other like, this is crazy because we just made this up. This is not a real thing. We just made it up. But there was already an energy that was being created around this kind of legend of this boy being in this house based on what somebody thought they saw. Okay. So it fits into the concept of an egregore because it's more of an energetic kind of thing. Like I talked about my mom and her experience. That's more of an egregore. It's more of a being that's created to a certain degree from thought. Okay, or from the minds of people, or people focusing on something and believing something to be true. Okay, so it questions a lot about the nature of reality and what's real and what's not real. Okay, but what Azrael said to me, he made a comment to me about something this morning, and it made me. And again, there's certain aspects of it that I don't know that I'm supposed to discuss. But the one thing that I thought was interesting is that he had made a comment about egregores in certain cases, and he says sometimes there are beings that are not manifest, okay, that are kind of I don't know, they're not beings that manifest easily in the world, but what they do is they don't manifest easily in the world. So they people almost create egregores so that they have a vehicle. Okay? Like he's looking at it from a different perspective. I mean, yes, you hear about people creating egregores, and I told you about experiments I did when I was younger about creating thought forms, to get messages and so forth across, because you can use your mental energy in that way. And as I mentioned, I was like 16 when I was really good at doing that, because I was still in that early hormonal phase where all the pituitary action was still going on. But energetically speaking, this created he is saying, no, you can actually, there could be a being that actually exists, okay? But for whatever reason, it is not, it's from a dimension or from a realm that's not able to manifest in this one. So the thought can be put into people's minds to do certain things to make this being manifest. And he said, now he's not saying that about himself, because he made himself manifest without me having to do anything or even thinking about him. I wasn't even looking to make contact with any angelic beings. But there are other things that seem to be appearing now that he had said, yeah, that is something that has been made manifest. But it's something that existed but had sort of the energy to exist in this realm, if that makes sense. So it's almost like that creates. You also you can think about what happens on investigations too, where people are kind of used as a battery. But this is a little bit different, because it's almost like there's a conscious focus of energy to bring something into being in a way. So it's interesting. The energy gets dense and the overall mood changes, right? It can, yes, with an egregore, depending on what its source is. It does make sense, is what Pat's saying. Yeah, and it's like Christine's theory. Christine's theory, I think, is a little bit more about the way in which we try to manifest pagan gods in a way that puts this Christian veneer over it, or this Judeo-Christian veneer over it. But this is a little bit more about intentionally, almost like beings influencing you to intentionally focus energy to bring something into being. So trying to understand this. Yeah, it's a weird concept because egregore is a word. Egregore is the Greek word for watcher. Okay, and it probably comes out of this idea of beings that watch. But what it's like, there's a whole book on this. Mark Stavish's book is a very good one. Did Azrael seem to indicate these beings are manifest via our thoughts? I think what he's saying is that there are certain beings that like he's telling me about certain beings that are manifesting. Like I'm telling you that there's this younger energy that seems to be next to me a lot now. That's new. That's different. He said, yeah, you've manifested that. He said, but it was something unmanifest that you, through the focus and attention, made it manifest. So in other words, it's an egregore of a type. It's a type of egregore that exists. In other words, it's a being. There are manifest being and unmanifest beings. Okay, we live in a world, and we always think of something as real as something that is manifest, something concrete, something we can point to, or at least energetically feel. Right? That we can say, okay, yes, there's a manifestation here that we can pick up on with our senses, or even with just our intuition. But sometimes it's that it requires that kind of mental focus and energy to bring it into being, is what he is saying. Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So that seems to be what this is about. So it is a type of egregore. But I think what it is, kind of to Joanne's point, is that there are different types of egregores, and what they have in common is that they require our energy and our focus to bring them into being, for however that works. I thought that was a poltergeist. Interesting. Okay, a poltergeist is not, but a poltergeist has nothing to do with thoughts. Poltergeists come out of completely unconscious energy because the person manifesting the poltergeist doesn't know that they're doing it. It's often somebody, so it's not that a person is focusing and saying, okay, I'm going to try to create this being that's going to move crap around the house. It's that they've got an energetic thing that's going on. It's like they're meant. It's like that psyche energy, because the psyche is not just our thoughts. That's the thing. The psyche is bigger than our thoughts. An egregore is something that we use our conscious mind to try to bring into being. When you have a poltergeist manifestation, it's something out of the collective. It's something archetypal that somehow is manifesting through your own energetic system. Nobody quite knows how that works, but it's been, but the documentation shows that it seems to be a case where someone's giving an excessive discharge of either hormonal energy or some kind of other psychic. Well, we're going to call it psychic energy, but the word psychic is misunderstood a lot of the time. Psychic we think of as like, seeing the future and stuff, but that's not really what it means. Like the Gollum and the Terry Pratchett books, perhaps. I haven't read Terry Pratchett, okay, Alex says, Josephine McCarthy talks about how egregores can be used for a benefit, like a magical lodge to protect. Sometimes they go wrong, but I have heard this. Yes, and people do create them. I have recreated them. I think I had talked about this a while ago. I've created them when I was younger. That was something that I played around with, was creating, although it was described to me as creating thought forms rather than creating egregores. And there is a special type of thing, and lodges do that. And Mark Stavish does talk about this in his book also. He talks about the way, and so his whole thing is, be careful what kind of egregores you're participating in. Like what kind of, if there's kind of a group think about protecting the lodge with a particular guardian or being that's created, do you want your energy to be part of that? I mean, that's a lot of Stavish's point in his book, from what I remember of it. And I do have a copy of it, but I haven't reread it recently. But that's kind of the thing. and it's, so there's a lot of different energetic beings that come from our own energy. So it's being created to do specific tasks. Yes, like the guardian thing. Right, exactly. A being that may be created to do a specific task. But what's interesting, again, this is new to me because I wouldn't have thought about this. Azrael saying to me this morning, well, sometimes egregores are created to make something manifest that isn't manifest. Now, an example of this that is a non-human example of this in the Chandipat or the Devi Mahatmayam. It depends on what part of India you're in, what they call it. But basically, the whole epic of Durga and Durga coming to bring, with the Shaktis manifesting to get rid of, greed in the world. We talked about this. Okay. So when the Shaktis become manifest, there's a whole section in the Chandipat where the gods, where they call upon the Devi, who is the great goddess just using Devi as kind of an overarching term in the same way that we use God as an overarching term. But she's not manifest. So they go through this whole litany, Ya Devi Sarvabhutesu, Dayarupina Samstita, Namastaste, 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 Namo Namaha. And they go through this whole litany. And the idea that Devi who is compassion, who is motherhood, who is energy, who is this, like they go through this whole list. And this litany makes her manifest. And then they actually say she literally separates from herself and she takes a form and she's like, whoa, what's going on here? You know what I mean? So she kind of comes into being that way, almost through this litany that the gods did. Interesting question. Says Kennings. Okay. Could egregores just be beliefs or confidence, myth, stress personified? It's an interesting question of how, if you believe something enough, will it become manifest? Maybe, maybe not. I think in excessive situations of stress, you can create an atmosphere of heaviness. But again, those I think are very unintentional creations. And there's kind of a range. They can just be a range of heaviness of mood in a particular place. Like if you have somebody who's under mental stress all the time, you might walk into their house and be like, oh my God, like you can just feel the tension in the air. And a lot of times it may be the tension between the people in the house. It may be a tension between, it could just be somebody who's under a lot of mental stress and not expressing it. If you're talking about something that's very extreme, you can create these kind of energetic beings. But I guess what I don't want to give the impression of is that they're all exactly the same. They're all, that is a term that they have in common, is that they are being manifested out of something. But some are intentionally manifested, some are side effects of stress. Some, when we're talking about poltergeists, that is almost an archetypal, again, we're talking about these initiatory phases, these phases of life. Usually for a woman, and a lot of times it can be boys too, but a lot of times it's at the beginning of puberty or at the very end of things. Okay, got it. It got to be ambient. I guess I'm trying to see if I'm explaining it the right way. It's something that's coming out of either your interaction with the collective, whether it's your stress, whether it's your hormones, whether it's whatever, or if it's something that's being done intentionally. That's a different type of egregore, because that's when somebody, literally takes something and manages to make it into something, in the way that somebody can make a person or a situation into, I don't know, you can almost make it into a type of a deity or a fetish object or something like that. The way people fetishize certain people or situations can almost be a type. It creates a certain type of energy. But whether or not that is always going to manifest as a god or as some other kind of being is, it would take a lot. I think that was David Rankin's point when he was talking about people who would say, well, I'm a pagan, so I don't deal with angels. And he's like, yeah, but angels, everybody has been focused on and believing in angels for 2,000 years. So that helps make them manifest. It doesn't mean that, I guess what he's saying, it doesn't mean that they didn't exist outside that realm, but the fact that they are thought of and called on all the time makes them manifest. These older gods, they do exist, but until they become really discussed in a broader sense, they may not hold as much power as the beings who have been invoked over and over again. Well, it makes sense because our outer world is a manifestation of our inner self. Yeah, there's really no distinction between the two in a way. It's just that the archetypal world, we tend to think of what we can see and what's in our senses and what's in front of us as the only aspect of our psychology. Oh, return to center. Yeah, we talked about that, right? Because there's life happening and what we are manifesting. Right, I was just thinking about David Rankin. Yes, exactly. And yeah, that was a talk I heard him give in Glastonbury, and it was a couple years ago. And that's what he had said, was that, yeah, there's that when things can be manifest, or they can at least be augmented, maybe that's the word. Their energy can be augmented through people's thoughts. That is another type of creative energy that we have. that maybe we're not quite aware that we have. But I think where he's differing from, I think, the usual definition is he said, we kind of act like, see, my mind is so powerful and look at all the things I can manifest. And he's like, well, not exactly. There's some seed of something that's already there that you're working with. It's like you're not going to create a sculpture just by thinking about it, kind of figuratively speaking. It's like there's going to be like the block of clay or whatever that you're going to be able to kind of mentally work with. Okay, there's like something that's already there. And so that's, you know, that's interesting. So sometimes we can create out of something that's there as a kind of pure potential, but we can create it in this energetic kind of a sense. So anyway, just an interesting thought, a little bit of a, maybe, you know, not to be confusing with it, but it was interesting that had come up this morning. The other thing that came up with Azrael this morning was that he was definitely talking about things, moving to the Western lands. He did point to November 4th as a day when things are going to be changing in a big way. He said that was the first number that he gave me was on the 4th. And again, we can take from that what we will. But he had indicated that for a lot of us, we may be feeling motivated right now to clean up. Like, I was thinking about going out and doing more cleanup in my yard, or, painting some things before the winter, or organizing my papers, or, getting the paper shredder out and, getting rid of extra stuff in the basement and stuff. We may be compelled to do this right now because for whatever reason we are, whatever this means to our future life path, which we might not know, we're kind of being compelled to tie up loose ends while we're still in this waiting period. So that was another thing that was said to me this morning, was like, yeah, this is a time to complete your beginnings, to finish up what it is that you want to finish up, so that you're not leaving anything hanging as the old phase ends, because if it's something that you've kind of been avoiding working with, it may be something that turns up again in some other form later on, and you would rather just tie up your loose ends now, whether they be physically speaking, in terms of what you're doing in your household. Sometimes even doing something physical, I think, can affect us, mental, on other levels too. Mental, spiritual, emotional, things like that. Because if you think about it, if you walk around your house and you feel like, oh my God, I've got 8 million things to do and I'm not doing them, that can create a state of mind where we feel anxious, where we feel like we have unfinished business. And so sometimes just finishing it allows us to empty that space, allows us to feel like we have cleared out our space. So if you're feeling, because this has been a time, we've just passed like we are in the new moon period, but there's still changes. We're still kind of in this tense period of waiting. So what they seem to be urging right now is like, take care of business. Wrap things up, wrap up anything. And like I said, sometimes even just doing something mundane, like all the things I've been trying to do around my house, which you think, well, what does that have to do with anything spiritual? Did so much cleanup around the house recently and it's never ending. Well, that's true. There is a certain degree of, it's like I said, you do one thing and you say, okay, great, I got this cleaned up. Oh, no, God, now that looks bad. Now I got to do that. Like I just had my gutters cleaned and I'm like, oh, you know what? We really should power wash the outside of those. But, it's just, because now they look dirty because everything else looks clean. There's just stuff where, and I have like a box of papers that I need to shred, but I need to go down to the town and buy more stickers, and, it's kind of a pain. You finally got that professional cert yesterday. Thanks for your welcome to Joanne. Oh, but congratulations. I'm glad you got a professional certification. Didn't know that. So, very glad to hear that. And working on my room, and I'm forever dusting altars. Yeah, I redid mine because it was, Samhain, so I redid mine. We forever have things that we're doing. But let's get on to our reading for today. So that was the other thing. So our first card is Celebration. This is our center card here. And the center card here is so this is about, celebrating. It's about being together. And so we are in this space now where we can look to others for support, where we can feel. There's been a whole lot about being in this enjoyment, yes, and being in the space of joy, and being in the space of these women are just kind of dancing in the rain. We could use some of that rain here, right? But there's this idea of just kind of being in this space of joyful celebration. And the inner feeling of which we're unaware, time to celebrate, and is the comparison card, okay? So there's the Five of Swords, and that's come up quite a bit recently. That sense of not only feeling limited, feeling stuck, or feeling like we're not enough in some ways. Yes, I'm not enough. Or we've done a lot of work and we're not done yet. And it kind of goes back to what I was just saying about organizing, right? We compare. Okay, we have this shiny new thing, but now this other thing doesn't look as good, right? I feel like this might be the context of it for this. Because when we clean things up and when we make space, the one thing we want to be careful of is not going to get into a mindset of... you can get into a mindset of having to control everything in the sense of, I've got to do it all right now, But there's a certain amount of limitation because we have other stuff we have to do, right? We have other things that we do. But the external feeling of which we are aware is success, okay? Now, the Six of Wands is this riding the tiger of success. And so, there's some level of accomplishment here. And I think that's the external thing that we're acknowledging. But there's something inside of us that's still saying, okay, but it's not enough. Or there's something inside us that is still, again, comparing what our result is maybe to a different result that maybe we think is somehow better than what we've achieved. I think there's a need to kind of get away from that kind of comparison. And our advice card here is the Queen of Clouds. It's the morality card, all right? And what is the Queen of Clouds here? Morality. It's this sense of, the way in which we judge everything, okay? So when this card comes up, there's a sense here, because as if you can see, she's got like this almost this iron grate. There's almost like the iron bars you put over a door or like over a prison, right? It's the way in which we can be imprisoned by our own judgments. And it could be that, I think what it's saying is that there's a reason to celebrate. We have succeeded at things. There's going to be success. We're going to see externally what we have manifested. And I think a lot of people here have manifested things that maybe they're not giving themselves credit for, or saying, well, I did that, but, but there's still this outstanding thing, but this still isn't perfect, but that still isn't right. And this is saying, drop that. Just drop the idea that everything after you've done it, that somehow it's not good enough. Kind of drop that idea. Because our outcome card is the Nine of Wands, okay? And this is the card of exhaustion. This is the card, in the fight or flight response, I feel like this is the fight card, okay? And we're worn out. We're drained from playing the same game over and over again. And so this is telling us, again, there's the reason that we are so exhausted is because we keep playing this game with ourselves. Now, it's almost the double-edged sword of the way in which we, when we accomplish something, okay, when you do something. So let's just say, for argument's sake, we're all here and we had some project we want to tackle. You have a closet you want to clean out, or, like for me, I've got to get all the leaves out of my yard. People are like, oh, you don't have to clean up your leaves. I'm like, no, there's about 6 billion of them out there. I have to get them out into the woods and off my property. Because they're getting to be a little bit of a hazard where they are. So, there's things that we have to do. But let's just say I go out and I complete all of that. Then, even after you do it and you have that sense of accomplishment, that sense, your room, the sense of satisfaction, then it's just kind of like, but that's not enough. Now, somehow we find a way to compare that to somebody else or to some other situation. And again, I'm just using that as a small example. It doesn't just have to be about cleaning something up. It could just be about something that you've taken care of. some task you didn't want to do that you completed, right? Seriously, yeah. Oh yeah, with the leaves, yeah, exactly. That you wanted to take care of, and once you do it, you have that feeling of accomplishment. Like once my yard is done, I love to take like the before and after picture. I'm like, look, I finished my yard. But then there'll be just some aspect of it like, oh, okay, well now that I did that, I really should have done this too. Or, there's almost that sense of, and then we become exhausted because there's just a never ending litany of what we don't have perfect, what we don't have absolutely right. Yes, actually enjoy our success for what it is, big or small. Yeah, exactly. And Joanne saying close and close. Yeah, there's a lot of clean out. I have a whole lot of stuff for Habitat for Humanity. My God, I mean, it's I have a trunk full of stuff that I haven't brought to them yet because it's a 10-minute ride up the road, but have I brought it there? No. So I think that's what it's saying is kind of appreciate it. I think there's a sense of needing to appreciate where you are and the successes that you have right now. Because I think we have a tendency to be very, very hard on ourselves. That Queen of Clouds energy in this deck, going back to savor the moment messages. Yeah, it just understanding that you have done something and also that you don't have to do it all. I think one of the lessons of Saturn in particular is we don't, yes, we kind of persistently work at something, but we don't have to fill every moment of our time. Doing things. We can say, okay, this is the thing I got done today. That's great. Now I can go celebrate. Now I can enjoy. I can treat myself. I can, do the self-care. I can do whatever. Because why not? I mean, and some people may say, they think it's like, yes, but, you can, why not? I mean, now that you've done this, you should just take the time and do this. Now, I know sometimes when you have momentum, you want to keep going and you want to get more things done. But you don't want to wear yourself out. And I think that's what is happening quite a lot. And of course, I think this is, for those of us who are generators, I think this is only something that we have to keep in mind. That there needs to, actually somebody like Alex, who's more of a projector, I said, that's actually, you're actually almost in a better space because it's like naturally that's the way it is. Naturally your body, your whole energy system is designed like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to work with people, and then I'm going to take my break. And with generators, we all just think like we're machines and that we have to keep going. And that may be kind of the point, that we're not machines. As we're moving into Aquarius, as we're moving into an Aquarian future that talks about technology. I mean, Aquarius is about technology, right? There was a card I saw when I went to Melissa's for my massage on Thursday. She has these cards that she lets people take. And one of the first cards, it's basically, they all kind of have a sailboat or an ocean theme. And they're little oracle cards. But she said, take it and then take it home. And I had picked a different one to take home. But the first one I had turned over when she wasn't, I kind of turned over when she wasn't in the room, basically said, when you feel like you're not going anywhere, adjust your sails, basically. So it's not so much about working harder. It's about which way is the wind blowing and move yourself in that direction, so that then you can start to move again. A lot of times it's because we feel like we have to persist paddling in a particular direction and we get worn out. You're a projector here as well. Oh, okay, so Suda, you're also a projector. Right, okay, that's right, because I had done yours as well. And Alex's I don't think I did, but I think she just knew that. Yeah, you're a reflector, actually. Okay, I thought for some reason, okay, Suda's a projector, you're a reflector. I'm pretty good at understanding the space of work and then rest and enjoy. Yes, projectors, reflectors, all are able to, I think, are better energetically positioned to make that space. Generators and manifesting generators tend to feel like there's this rest, like I have to be doing something all the time. Like, I have to, they're the ones who, like, it was like my mother, it was like, okay, well, I have nothing to do, I'll go out and wax the driveway, that was my brother's joke, but it was just like, I need to be doing something all the time. And like when I say to her, well, no, like, especially now as she's older and she can't move as well and so forth, I say to her, I'm like, no, you should be sitting inside. Oh, no, I have to go out and sweep the driveway. I have to clean the gutters. This is an 87-year-old woman with, osteoporosis and osteopenia. And we're like, you're gonna kill yourself doing that. She's like, no, but I have to do it. And then she'll do it. And then if there's like one leaf that gets on the driveway, she has to run out and get rid of it, And Alex said, that was my father, constantly vacuuming after long work days at the office. Yeah, there's sometimes we just run ourselves into the ground, and it's just. But I think some of that too, there's a certain guilt. That's the morality piece of it. There's a certain guilt that if I take time out from myself, if I take time out to celebrate, that I'm doing it wrong. You know, my mom, the need to be useful. Yeah, exactly. Being useful and wanting to be needed by people, that's another piece of it. But sometimes just you being yourself, being in a celebratory place, actually does provide something to other people. It's kind of the way in which we create, and we think, oh, well, I just created this thing and it's just for me, so that's not as useful because it's not for other people. It's like, but it is for other people. Every time you put yourself into a space where, I think I've used the example of like going to the grocery store. If I'm in a good mood and I kind of radiate that, then the people around you, you notice, react to that. They smile. When you're in a bad mood and you go in, everybody just kind of gives you a dirty look because they can feel that too, you know? Your whole, the way you carry yourself radiates to other people. It doesn't have to be that you are doing a specific thing for them, okay? Because again, we're talking about manifest versus kind of what's unmanifest. I pulled a essential oil card for us, and the key word here is inspiration. And the trigger statement is, I'm tired of it all. There we go, the exhaustion card. The true statement is, I find strength in my purpose, okay? Or in whatever it is you're being guided towards, right? Because we've talked, I think we agree that life doesn't necessarily have a purpose per se. But we all have our own sense of purpose, of what we feel authentically we need to be doing. And then it says, please rest. Oh my gosh. Please rest and know that in this stillness, you will find clarity around your purpose here. The need to cope will fall away as you find the question that you are the answer to. Yes, you tend to be a celebratory type. Well, that's good. That's not a bad thing at all. So yeah, rest in the fact that you don't, and there's the key word there, I think, cope. We feel we have to cope. Haha, can't make it up. Right, exactly. This is just random. I'm not like, I don't pre-plan any of these readings. So yeah, it's not about coping. It's about, it's about just being and enjoying. And yeah, now that it's kind of like I always get that, like we have the words try and then we have the word cope. We're not here to cope, I mean, and that's what I think when I talk about you adjusting the wind. It's kind of like, oh, I've got to get up and I have to drudge my way through this list. It's just like, no, you celebrate in what you do. And if you don't get everything done, and if you don't get it all done perfect, part of imperfection is part of being human. So allow that imperfection to kind of come in. Don't feel that you have to be that you have to meet some kind of impossible standard all the time. And like I said, and if we do things sometimes just a little at a time, as the mood strikes us, then eventually we get through everything. So it's, so anyway, and then if we have that big burst of energy, we're like, no, I want to clean all the things, then we do it, right? But I think there's a sense of not feeling, what I'm seeing there, interestingly, is this idea that oftentimes we feel like we're not enough, we're not doing enough, we don't have things under enough control. I'm being lazy, I'm being sloppy, I'm being this, I'm being that. And it's just like, no, it's just, you're doing things, things should be a celebration. We do the things that we need to do, and then we take that time out to do whatever it is that represents celebration or self-care for ourselves. We either celebrate with others or we do something nice for ourselves. Either way, I've done that. I've had a whole day where if I've had an entire morning where I've worked like 6-7 hours, I'm like, right, I'm going out to lunch. I'm bringing the book I've been wanting to read for a while, and then I just go and I treat myself, right? Yes, the need for control. Exactly. Cloud energy or sword energy is always about control, and particularly about mental control, because that's that gets back to it. And maybe that is why Azrael had brought this up as his point this morning, because he's trying to say it's not that, the conscious mind can create things, but don't assume that the conscious mind is just the creator in and of itself. That's almost like the demiurge idea that where the cloud comes in and we believe that we are the only one. That's interestingly another way to think about the idea. Like the philosophers always thought about it as our rationality being the thing that's going to allow us to see that. But I'm like, no, the rationality may be the thing that gets in our way, because we start to believe like, me with my powerful mind can do it all. And that's not the right focus. It's a matter of what you let pass through you and doing things and being able to just enjoy what you're doing, Oh, okay, I hear you. Yeah. But just letting it pass through you. And even thoughts that you have, just sometimes when we have thoughts that are very, where we have those days where our mind just won't shut up, we know those days. Sometimes the thing that you just need to do is just let it ramble and you just continue to do your thing. And eventually it shuts up. Yeah, that makes sense. Eventually it just shuts up. And it finds another direction. And so also creativity is something that doesn't always manifest in the way that you, okay, we may have a plan for what we want to do. I'll give you a very current example. So I have certain things that I'm working on. Obviously, I want to develop classes that people want to take now. People want to take that tarot class. I need to put up that dream workshop. I need to, which will probably be mid-November at this point on a Saturday, just so you know. And it'll be, so doing the workshop, doing that. And also, I have certain, I want to start thinking about the ISFM for next semester. Like, what are we going to be doing? Now, though, I have another novel that wants to be written, that wants to be expressed. And I feel like I have a lot of these, and some of them are finished, and I just haven't decided what I'm going to do with them yet. But I have one right now that, relinquishing control, right? And I'm just like, okay, so yesterday I did the few things that were on my list that I was going to get done, grocery store and stuff like that. And then I actually spent several hours last night just writing. And it felt good to do it, And then when I was done, I treated myself, I was just like, okay, I'm going to have a little celebration in the evening for myself, and that's it. And because things are far more enjoyable because sometimes those urges are moving us in a direction, and it's a direction that will make us happy. It doesn't mean that we ignore the things we're supposed to do, but we're having a lot of impulses, and at least part of that impulse is very Virgo type in its energy. It's the idea that we need to clear space. And it makes sense also as we're moving into winter, because what is winter? It's that kind of barren season before new seeds are planted, right? So it's emptying. The trees are emptying, right? All the leaves are falling off. There's an emptying that's going on, and we're clearing our space, saying, okay, wait for the spring for something new to come in. So as they say, when fishermen can't go to sea, they repair nets. You do the things that you can do now, and then eventually there'll be the space, and the thing that wants to be expressed will express itself, but it's not something that you can consciously plan for all the time. So anyway, seems like we had a lot of different things we were talking about here about manifesting and how that works. But a lot of times, I think even with the egregore thing, it may be something that wants to be manifested through you. So my head, slow down and let go. Yeah. Well, exactly. I know, Pat, that's kind of a thing when I talk to Pat, I'm always just kind of like, okay, get a little bit more out of your head. But of course, it's sometimes it's easier said than done. So, we have to, it's not that we have to work at it, because sometimes it's like, it's kind of like when that kind of gets back to the whole, if I tell you not to think about anything but a pink elephant, all you're going to think about is a pink elephant. It's just got to sometimes you've just got to leave it alone, So, you are welcome. And yes, Joanne's reminding me that we definitely are at time and at past time, actually. So I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday, and celebrate and do what you want. Yeah, Taurus. Well, you got a lot of planets in the 10th house, actually, Pat. I mean, you got a ton of them. So, thank you. Have a wonderful day. Yes, Alex, I'll see you a little bit later. And and everybody have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see you Sunday morning.